So you want to make pixel art, but you don't know where to start, you don't know what the rules are, and you just generally have no idea what you're doing. That's okay. So first and foremost, pixel art is not an art style in and of itself. There is no one pixel art style. Pixel art should be seen more like a medium, like paint or crayon or marker. It is a medium in which you use to create the art. So you still need to have a fundamental understanding about art, or rather it helps. You don't need one. You can learn purely from pixel art, but if you already know how to draw, then that really does help. The program that I'll be using is called Paint.net, and it's basically Paint with layers and transparency. For all you Windows users, you can go to getpaint.net. Yes, that's the actual website. And don't worry, it looks super shady, but that's only because they haven't updated since the dinosaurs. I promise you won't get any viruses, you won't get any problems with your computer, it won't spontaneously combust. I've been using it for years. As for Mac users, you guys could probably use Photoshop, which Windows users can use as well, but if you don't like that, there is a program that Brian tipped me off to. It's called Aspirite. It comes with built-in onion layers and an animating tool, and it looks pretty neat. It costs $15 or $14, I don't quite remember, and that's about the price of a meal and a half. So if you're willing to part with a meal for something that you're essentially going to be using for the rest of the quarter, and as long as you want to do pixel art, you could just buy that. So, pixel art is all about limitations, giving yourself limitations and the limitations of the medium itself. The first and most fundamental limitation, I think, is size. And back in the olden days, during the era of early Nintendo Entertainment System, most programs, or most games, were called 8-bit or 16-bit. This refers to how certain things could only have a certain amount of colors, and also that they were constrained to 8 by 8 pixels. So that's this square that I drew right here. Now I did that because practice pixel art, you want to practice within these boundaries. Now, when you get better at it, you can kind of break these rules, but it's good to understand the rules at the beginning, and this can help you make, what begins to look like good pixel art in the beginning. So right here, I'm going to draw a crate, a simple crate. Another thing about limitations is, with pixel art, you want to limit your color scheme. Now I could, if I wanted to shade this crate, just go nuts and have a million different shades of this brown, but that detail is gonna be lost because of how big these pixels are. You see I've done a lot of these little shades, and and you can still kind of tell, and that can look good, but I think for practice, try limiting yourself. So instead of all these different shades of brown, we're just going to use this one shade and a second darker shade, maybe more saturated. And we're just going to think, what are the fundamental elements of a crate that you can show, because every pixel counts. See, that one pixel takes up like 1/8 of this whole box. So let's say the crate has a top cap and a bottom cap, and it has a bunch of planks along the way. And there we go, we have a crate. We have an 8 by 8 crate, and 8 by 8 is very, very small. It doesn't leave a lot of room. So maybe we want to do something a little bit bigger. Now, with pixel art, you usually start from 8 and then multiply it by 2. So then 16. Now, of course, again, there are exceptions to this, but just for practice, I think, rule of thumb, just try with these. So it would be 8, then 16, then 32, then 64, etc., etc. I like to use those as parameters, anyway, for making this stuff. Like, this guy right here, I made this portrait, and this thing is, what is it? 128? Yeah, 128 by 128, so that's one step above the 64. So, with a 16 by 16 crate, we can add a little bit more detail because we have more pixels to work with. So maybe we can give the plank, the caps, a little bit more room. See, now, they're a little bit taller And as for the planks kind of lining it, the inside, we can actually cut them off right there to show that maybe they're a little bit inward more. Now, although this is a taller, kind of more pixel per bang for your buck or whatever size of this crate, it still kind of looks plain. And, well, we have more real estate, so let's add a little bit more details. And a third color. So this plank is hovering above, say, these ever so slightly, so maybe we can have a darker version of that. And maybe there's a little bit of shadow underneath these caps. You see, now, and every pixel counts. That's one thing. The smaller your image, or the smaller your pixel size, whatever limitation that you give you, the more important each pixel is. Okay, so that kind of looks like an okay crate, right? I mean, it's fine and functional. But let's say I don't like this crate's, like, sharp edges, but I wanted a crate that looks like it's got rounder edges. Well, every pixel counts, so I'm going to remove only a single pixel. And boom, it looks more like a more round crate, right? Look at that. And all I had to do was erase the corners. See, that's what I mean by every pixel counts. So if I were to draw, you know, like this thing right here, it looks like a square, but erase these pixels, suddenly it looks like a circle. And that goes for so many things, you know. I mean, angles in particular. Whenever you have something like this, erasing a single pixel can make it look more like it's not so choppy. And what I said before about there is no single pixel art style, we can actually draw this crate in another style, and while still staying within our parameters. Maybe we want to make all the outlines black, you know? Maybe if you're going for that, like, kind of inked up comic book style, you know, make it all black and just make it a single color. Jet Set Radio actually does this. Most of the characters are a single color and cel shaded. Or maybe we only want the black outline and the rest of it is colored in, like Borderlands. If you guys ever seen Borderlands, and it could give it kind of a pseudo 3D look, because like all the depth is inside and then it's being outlined by this black outline. Yeah, there we go. We have 3 different styled crates, and it's still all retaining the same color scheme and stuff. And, you know, all it takes is just a single pixel to completely change. Do you see now this kind of looks like it's kind of jutting out a little bit, you know? Maybe we can even go even further to show that it's even more jutting out. So we can take this darker color, make it look like it's emitting a shadow, and take this darker color to fill in these creases to look like the shadow extends into the creases. There we go. Now it looks like this crate has kind of got a little like roof over here. So now we can go even bigger. And really this is a thing that you have to figure out what your limitations are in terms of size, in terms of color. Me personally, I like to keep it with no outlines. That's just a style that I like. If you see, this is a tank that I drew several years ago. You can see there are no outlines on this tank, but I used different shadings to convey different angles. You see, this lighter blue is to convey that this square barrel is at a different angle right here as compared to right here, you know, and same with these wheels, you know, and you can see that the wheels are casting a shadow to show that they're kind of extended out a little bit. But let's say we're tired of these forward-facing crates, and let's say hypothetically we were in a world where Jerry didn't ban 2D platformers, and you wanted to give this crate a little bit of depth and to see the side a little bit. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna break the rules a little bit. Actually, no, we can work within these parameters. Let's say we were working within these parameters of 16 by 16. Well, we can draw the crate down here, but I'm going to make it a little shorter. It's turned at an angle towards us, if I could draw a straight line. So here we have this crate, and we're going to see it's turned at a certain angle. So now the face of the crate, this part, is now facing over here. Now, just like with this little tank that I drew way back when, how we can accentuate sort of the other side is by shading it something different. And we're still staying within the 16 by 16 or 32 by 32 limitation, but I'm gonna get rid of this for now because we're not using that space. Whoops. Let's say, since this side's darker, we want the outline to also be darker. So maybe we put like a little, bam, there. Now the outline's darker too. And I don't know, maybe we want the edges to show some wear and tear. So maybe we add a 5th color or 4th color. Maybe we make this edge kind of slightly shinier and brighter. And that was just 1 pixel wide. You can see how much difference that makes to make this look like it's got a little bit more depth and a little bit more character to it. So now back to the planks. So here I'm going to do the same thing, and we're going to keep in mind this little, this little edge, and just take. See, this is another thing that we're keeping with our limitations. We're staying with the limitation of using this color instead of making sort of an in-between between this color and this color. We just picked one that already exists, and using that for our little in-between color. Back here and picking this one and reusing our colors. Remember, give yourself a limited color scheme. So I'm kind of bored of this same plank sameness, so I'm going to add a little bit more character. Let's give it a little kind of tilted plank right here. Adding a little bit more character to our crate. And because we have a little bit more room to work with, I'm gonna make these planks a little bit wider. And because we have more real estate, I'm gonna add more detail. Because now I know my limitations from working with a smaller box. I can add more stuff to this bigger box. Maybe these planks have little rivets in them. And these are all just single pixels. You can see that but it still is able to convey information on what these things are. Of course here, I don't really have that luxury. I think I might, yeah, see, when you're working with even less pixels, it's like you have to kind of make compromise. So although this doesn't look quite right, it still gets the point across. And maybe to show that so it doesn't look like it's on one side, I might squish it even more. Just push it all the way to the edge. And of course, this side is kind of more squished than this side, so maybe this diagonal plank is going at even more of an angle. So now I'm using 2 pixels per step, I guess you could call it, instead of 1. And there we go. We have a more detailed crate with kind of another side to it. And I'm going to see if I can't do that with this 16 by 16. Try to really challenge myself. And look, we were able to make like a smaller version of this one. So let's say you still kind of don't understand it all. Well, that's okay, because guess what? You can cheat. And I'm going to show you how you can cheat. If you, let's say you have artistic ability, but you're not able to transfer it really well down to pixel art form. What you can do is, let's say, take something you've drawn, like, let's just take this character for instance, and then, because you're more comfortable drawing that way, paste it into your preferred pixel art program, and then shrink it down to whatever size. So let's make her 64 wide, or tall, I guess. So I shrunk her down way down, right? This was her original size, now she's much smaller. Now of course I'm gonna stick with I'm gonna make a new layer, and I'm gonna stick with those limitations. So I'm only gonna give myself a limited amount of colors. Probably just the colors that I used here, I kind of drew her with pixel art in mind, kind of even out her hair and all that. Just make it all one even tone as opposed to this variations, which you can do, but takes a really keen eye for this kind of stuff, which I do not have. But if you feel like you can do it, by all means. Which, by the way, none of what I say is gospel. If you guys learn better tips or anything like that, then, you know, if something works better for you, then by all means do that thing. I am in no way a master at this. I am still learning, just like you guys, just like everybody else. And, you know, my method might not work for you, and, you know, that's okay. If you find a better way, then use that better way. This is just simply how I've learned to do it. And the best teacher of all is to practice and to just not stop. Just keep doing it. I only got the way that I am because I've been doing this for about 10 years. Again, use of the single pixel matters. So kind of, or rather too thick upper lip, thin upper lip, thick, thin. Only a few pixels can make all the difference. Also here, kind of friendly face, frowning face. Friendly face, frowning face. And working in smaller sizes is kind of a double-edged sword, because although there's less for you to draw and worry about, each pixel has even more significance. So let's say I wanted to draw a character that is only 8 by 8, you know, like this. I don't have a lot to work with, but I have to convey that he's a character. If I have his arms down here, a single raise up of his arm by a single pixel kind of looks like he's waving now, or that he's got a second head. So, double-edged sword. Less pixels to draw, but each pixel is more and more significant. More pixels to draw, more detail, and you can convey a lot more. So, it's the balance. And here I've shown an example of how different in style you can actually go with it, depending on the limitations you give yourself. So this one is sort of a trying to shade without adding more color. So I did sort of this kind of grid system that from far away kind of looks more like the gradient that you're going for, you know, whenever you do more of like a gradient thing. This one right here is more sort of a comic book outline sort of style that, you know, I used to be more comfortable with doing, and it can look good. It's just not my preferred style. But, you know, if you are more comfortable with, you know, more traditional outlining with black, then, you know, you can do that style as well. Although you'll have to keep in mind, you may have noticed I made some modifications to where the placement of the black would be so that there isn't a concentration of black in one spot, like right there. Again, every pixel counts. So if I were to draw it down here, then the black of the sort of eyelash on top of the black of the hair would kind of be a little thick. So, you know, just kind of moved it, shuffled it up ever so slightly. Over here is where I kind of removed a few more limitations and made sort of in-between colors. So now I have 4 shades per color or something like that, and gave it sort of a Borderlands style outline across, not in the drawing itself, but around the entire thing. And then a more simple style that I'm more comfortable with because it saves time and it gets the point across. You can go a lot of kind of different ways with this. One last thing, a very, very good resource to look at references for sprite work and pixel art is a website called The Spriters Resource. Pretty much every pixel art game imaginable is on there. If you have one from your childhood that you want to look up, you could probably find it on there. And they're very good reference. Please don't steal these. Please don't rip off these sprite sheets. I don't want you guys to get in trouble with Jerry or anybody else, or if you ever think about putting your game out there, you know, for realsies, and then finding out that you infringed on copyright of another game. So anyway, that's the basics, pretty much, of pixel art. If you guys have any questions, let me know in class or in the group me. I'll try my best to answer it and might do another one of these, if you guys want. Anyway, good luck with your games, and I'll see you in class.